Welcome back. So this time we're going to talk more about forms and validation of forms because we're going to add new fields here. We're going to add a confirm password and a password field, and we want a lot of information here. So first of all, notice that there's a few changes here. Now it can actually start validating a minimum length for our username. We can add invalid email address. So I will make this work. And the password, if I start typing a password here, so I'll just type 126 here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if I do the same down here, it starts telling me you need to have the same, so they're confirmed, right? You see this in pretty much all applications. And all of that we have to make now, and I've done a lot of changes to do this actually, but I'll run over them with you now, so it shouldn't be rocket science to figure that out. I'll start on the user create HTML component, and I'll just show you the differences that I made, because there's so much to talk about, and the videos will be so long if I have to sit and write the code myself, because as I talk, I really am not that good at typing the right things that I try to explain to you guys. So first of all, the first change I did is pretty much make this into center start as a row layout. Now the reason I did this was to place the create user in the center here. That's pretty much all I did that for. If we scroll down here, I also added a width of maximum 400, meaning that it's placed right here in this width of 400. That's pretty simple layout stuff. Then we have the first change here, which is the container where we're actually going to have our different input fields. And notice I also added columns, so they will be placed like this, vertically instead of horizontally. Okay, that's also a pretty important change. The new thing to name is I added min length equals 3. Now I also added hints to that one so that we can actually say if there's a min length error, notice this just maps to this guy, so it's not rocket science. And if that guy pops up, then we're going to show this error right here. Okay, so it's that simple. I'm not going to stay more in that area. We already touched that a bit in the last lessons. Here's the same one for the password. I added min length of 6 and required. So again, those two we just covered those, so I don't want to spend time there. But here's a new one. The repeat password has a new type of validator called validate equal to. Now this is actually a validator that's built behind the scenes inside what we call a directive. So we're going to, next lesson I'm going to show you how we built this one. I cannot take the credit for you, and I'll show you where I got it from, but I had to make some changes to actually make it work in my code. So let's have a look at that in the next couple of lessons. And again, the validate equal to is just the same as the other. Now I do an MD hint here, that's for the required one, and then I do an MD hint here where I actually say repeat password errors and then validate equal, right? What else is there to tell? Well, most of this is pretty much just changing direction, so nothing really major there. And that's pretty much it. It was just important to me to make a better layout and actually prepare ourselves because we need a password now to create users. So we also need to validate that password. So that was the changes for the actual form right here. Let's go down to the TS file and see the changes there, because that's also very, very simple. We can actually see it right here. I just added this line right here, just saying if you do use the onSubmit, bring the form in from the outside and just make sure that it's actually valid. So it pretty much just means when I do the onSubmit up here, I also send in the user form, this guy right here, into the onSubmit, and then I can do a .validate that just makes sure that everything is valid before I actually try and submit the new user. So this will only be launched if the form is actually valid right now. Good. Then we have the user here. I also added one thing to him. I added a new confirm password, basic stuff. And then to the app module, I had to add this new equal text validator. If you make new directives, you have to remember to do this. I found a lot of tutorials where they forget to tell you this, but you have to import the actual directive, and then you have to use it down here. Now, if you're new to this, don't use directives. Wait, because it's pretty complex stuff. But now I've made one that you can just grab and use yourself if you want to for actually validating two text fields if they are equal text. And you can use it also to build new ones, I'm sure, because it's not that complex when we start looking into it. So I think that was pretty much it for this video. I want to say one more thing. Right now we're using something called template-driven forms, which is what we did in Angular 1. We use these forms always. This form is starting to get really complex to read. Notice how much code there's actually in here. A lot of it is because we're using MD hints again and again. A lot of it is because we're multilining this, but it starts to get pretty complex. Now we're going to try and break this down into components in the next couple of videos as well, just to play around with components. But there's another way. There's one called reactive forms. That's the new Angular forms. And we're going to look at those later as well as we start building other forms. So I just want you to know this is the old way of building forms, and we're actually going to look at new ways. But if you're used to HTML in any way, this is easier to read in my mind. But the reactive forms are a lot stronger when we talk about Angular code. That's all for this lesson. See you next time where we'll talk about the actual equal validator. Have fun.